Alright, kind of a Efil video, I suppose, but it's going to be on the Inmendham channel, I suppose, because it's sort of a response to the holiday accusations, the slander, that's what I'm going to call it. It's just a lie. He's made a few troll videos where he just takes a bunch of clips out of context, and, for the purpose, not clips that show any factual problem, just mocking how I speak, what phrases I use, the kind of thing you could do to anyone. There's certainly targets here on YouTube that, in a matter of speaking, say the same thing over and over and over. The question at issue, they say silly shit like that over and over and over again, and you could just make a joke video out of that. Well, anyway, so his newest video is just making the same, calling it pseudo-philosophy, figurative language, too many metaphors. And it's a preposterous accusation. It really is. And I'll demonstrate it just by this simple analysis. So you're going to analyze anything in the world, anything. Somebody just shows up and gives you a toaster. You're going to analyze this thing and figure out what it is and what it does and why it exists. So that's kind of how we're sitting here looking at life. And that's what this is. It's an analysis of life. That's the subject. That's why I call it Efilism. It's life spelled backwards. Because the analysis has demonstrated it just doesn't have a function. It can't be defended as something you produce on purpose. I actually bought cigarettes. Yeah, I know. I just thought it would help. I just was having a moment where I said, cigarettes will make the difference. And they didn't, but, I have to do it now and then. Anyway. So here's the life thing. So the first, there's going to be premises. There's going to be foundational conclusions drawn, just as you would draw foundational conclusions about a nuclear power plant or anything you were analyzing. You draw conclusions about what it does, what it will happen, what its impact is, what it does, what it's made out of, how much it costs to make. These are things that you'll establish as facts, and then you'll do your analysis. So part of the analysis is this conclusion. You can start at either end. You can start with evolution, or you can start with the broader, there is no God, okay? There is no need mechanism in the universe. So outside of Earth, you could look into the cosmos, and you're not going to find a sign saying, we need help. Please help us. You're not going to find any circumstance in the universe that says, make a human being, we need one, hurry, hurry. There's nothing in the universe that justifies externally the existence of this thing called life. There's nothing. It can't fix something in the universe that needs fixing. The intelligence doesn't have a function. The capacity to feel doesn't have a function. It doesn't do anything for the universe. It doesn't repair it, doesn't make it improved, doesn't do anything to fix a deficit, let's just say. There's no deficit in the universe. That seems obvious, round hole, and that somehow humanity is the round peg. No such circumstance. So there's premise one. No underlying fundamental purpose. No underlying, no intrinsic mechanism for which you could say, this is something we must have. So now the must have has to come from the thing itself. It has to make something that makes it obvious of its value. It has to produce the sign that says the universe needs humans. It has to make a justification for making that sign. It has to do enough to validate that phrase. The universe now needs humans. Humans have proved their value. They can't resort to some other existing condition. So that's one of the premises. No underlying function. We're not making a God happy, and we're not making the universe feel better. There's nothing, again, we're not curing any pre-existing disease. Okay, now you do the analysis of the life itself, and this is just a conversation about evolution. It's a replicating molecule, not a great origin, and it has a means of production, a means of change and advancement that has a really insane attrition rate, kills most of the models it makes, and 500 million years ago, or 3.5 billion years into the gameplay of molecular chemistry, it created something like the concept of ouch. It created a repulsive or obnoxious or painful sensation. And that now we can analyze as a separate component of life and say, is this or is this not significant? Now, this is where I've made simple arguments. This isn't figurative language. I'm just saying being conscious has quite obviously informed my intelligence of what consciousness is like. I have a taste of it because I am in fact conscious. And so that analysis is really easy, because I'm conscious. It's easy in the sense that I certainly have every opportunity to turn it over and play with it and get it right. So I think it's quite apparent to me from my analysis of consciousness that sensation is a profoundly powerful mechanism. That the sensation of ouch is magnitudes more important than the word, writing the word ouch on a piece of paper. That sensing, feeling, is the thing in the universe. It's more something than anything else I can see, understand, contemplate. There's nothing I can conceptualize as being more meaningful or relevant or powerful as a thing existing than this thing called consciousness. And I've declared it, for my judgment, the value generator, the only thing in the universe that can create this concept or idea of important, valuable, necessary, any word of requiring attention, creating things like meaningful obligation and responsibility. None of these things could exist without the existence of the sentient organism in danger of harm. Without that thing existing, all the rest of it can take any shape or be in any form, and it has no substance or meaning relevance. It is of no consequence to anything called an intelligent priority. Intelligence cannot glean meaning when there is no consequence to sentience. If you can't hurt something Intelligence just can't find a reason to care. It can't care unless it's been programmed to care. It won't occur to it logically to care, to make it a prime directive or make it an important consideration, unless there is the vulnerability that consciousness creates. So the simple premise gleaned out of that is that consciousness creates value, that suffering does in fact suck, that it is in fact negative. It's a negative condition, and it is a sensible obligation, responsibility, priority to convert this negative condition into a less negative condition. It's the mathematical mandate. It's the sensible thing to do. It has logical written all over it. Once you have established the existence of this value. So those are two premises. No intrinsic purpose, and consciousness through evolution, as a byproduct of evolution, has created value generators in the fact that it has created sentient organisms. And the third argument has to be, I think, stated metaphorically in the sense of the cost to benefit of analysis of the running of the machine. So when you run this consciousness through its gameplay, what is it really doing? And then you start getting into the argument of, well, it's a need machine. It needs comfort. And it has to consume comfort out of an environment. And often it has to consume its comfort by causing discomfort to other value-generating devices. And this creates an economy of value. And that, in the end, the argument can be made that this just creates the opportunity for making a mess, which is your need, and not being able to clean up most of it, leaving most of the mess behind in terms of unsatisfied ambitions and unsatisfied conditions of suffering, unresolved in the sense that there's no redeeming functionality to justify the suffering endured, preventing, if you have 10 years of suffering, preventing the next 10 years of suffering doesn't undo the first 10 years of suffering. That's the problem. Although it is good to stop the second 10 years of suffering, it's intrinsically a good thing to eliminate that suffering. It is not a good capable of compensating for the bad of the first 10 years. And this scenario, this problem in the mathematics, creates what is described as a zero-sum game, which I suppose is semi-metaphorical, but it's sort of an explicit statement that you're just creating a negative, elevating its condition, and calling that profit. So essentially, you have a $1 million loss as a business. You cut your losses to $500,000 and then say you're running a profit. That wouldn't make any sense. Because you haven't gotten rid of your losses. And so this is, again, just the many ways you can metaphor or describe or compare. Like I said, I think economics is an explicit, it's not really metaphorical. I think it's direct enough to be called something else. And I think there's an economics to this value equation in the sense that you're creating something. You can certainly understand the idea of positive movement from a pre-existing negative condition, not necessarily creating an absolute profit. That you can do the good of eliminating some bads, but that doesn't mean you're running a profit. And that's certainly understandable without figurative language or magical thinking. And I would argue that that's perfectly reasonably analogous to the human condition. That humans are caught in a fundamentally negative game of minimize your losses. That comfort is merely gaining what you've lost, what's been taken, and you're just trying to get it back and such. The pool is looking nice color, but still a little hazy, which I don't like. But, you know, they don't run the filter enough. Anyway, yeah, save energy and all that, you know. There. Chore number 1 done. Yeah, now off to work. Anyway, damn, this horsefly biting the fuck out of me. Son of a bitch. Anyway, okay. A lot of bites this year. Everything this year. It's kind of stuff I could have done without. Anyway. Alright. So all this talk, I mean, really, you shouldn't have to go through all this, you know, specific parsing of language and words to get across a simple concept, which is that we are need machines. Again, that's not really figurative language. It's an explicit description of what our function is. We create need. By definition, that's what we do. We need stuff. And is there something intrinsically valuable in needing? Do these needs need to be created only by perception? You can't find the need in the environment. If you survey all the animals on Earth, gave them language skills for the day, and asked them, do you need human beings to exist? I think they're probably going to say, no, you can fuck them in the ass. There's nobody that needs you, your race, your kind, your species, but your perception. You perceive need, but you are the one with the figurative language, the fairy tale that has made that up. You haven't made it up out of a reasonable analysis of the game being played. You're just selfish and egomaniacal and have chosen to say, I need me. There, now I've solved the problem. I've created the need for me to exist by needing me to exist. And circular, of course, fundamentally, you know, a fallacious logic. So you're not going to win with that argument. And you're clearly not going to win with any argument about our necessity to keep creating more need than we resolve in the world. And that's clearly the contention being made. And it is clearly illustrated with metaphors like gladiator war, which was an actual thing in history. Okay, it's not entirely figurative language. It does relate to something that actually took place and actually has relevance. and that we are fundamentally actually participating in. Yeah, the new sidewalks. Gonna do paving the road. Lots of dirt and such. Anyway, so let's see what else. Yeah, so you're just serving your own ego and calling that some sort of real science. Sorry. The science of I want. Yeah, that doesn't sound like science. So, yeah, so wrapping up. Lots of quick, steamrollers, steamrollers. Ooh, steamroller. Ooh, I love the steamroller. I love you, steamroller. Crush, crush. Anyway, I want to buy one of those. Yeah, I have some side projects to do. Need a steamroller for. Anyway, lots of places in England need to be steamrollers. Anyway, Scotland, or where the fuck these lunatics live. The British Islands and such. The Great Britons. Fucktards everywhere. Where was I? Okay, so summing up. Yeah, so here we have really simple truth. Mechanical universe, no sentient need. It can't be hurt. You can't hurt its feelings. You can't do a damn thing. Can't cause a value problem for the universe. Okay, life on Earth, molecule, DNA, toolkit. One of the tools just happened to be this idea of a motivating mechanism of sensation, attraction, repulsion. Game on in terms of, whoa, that means something. Things are now feeling. Feelings are important. We'll recognize that with our brain. Feelings are different than not feeling. Very different even. Very, very different. Yeah, human, very different than little rock. Little rock, who cares? Hits telephone pole. Human hit telephone pole, no good. Yeah. I gotta have the scientific discussion of explaining that to people. They're gonna call me a pseudoscientist, and they don't understand the difference between rock hitting telephone pole and sentient being smashed into telephone pole. Incredible. Yeah, it really is just too bizarre. I have to have this conversation. Yeah, prickers. Ouch, ouch. More prickers. Ow. Okay. Yeah, I think I've done my job. And we'll call it a finished video, I believe. Yeah, so if there's a few premises built into this argument, in the sense that I've just explained them, why these are my conclusions, they seem totally rock solid. No external purpose. Consciousness is the value engine. Yeah, can't get around that. And the fact that the fundamental nature is to create a problem in the consciousness, and the problem through the biological mechanism is usually related to the selfish, sentient DNA molecule getting itself replicated. So it's a crude mechanism for crude purposes, and therefore I'm saying this device called life is a piece of junk, and no further money should be spent on its production. There. Not very difficult. Yeah. So where's your counter argument? What in that statement's made? Sentience is valuable. The universe is dumb. Counter argument. Yeah, no, you're not going to have one. Till next time.